Godzilla, the king of the monsters. Saitama, the One-Punch Man. While I previously did a video discussing what would happen if we placed the MonsterVerse Godzilla into the One-Punch Man series, and how far he would get, since of course Saitama was too powerful for him, I thought it would be interesting to place him up against a Godzilla who's way more powerful, Heisei Godzilla. Could the hero still beat the monster? Or will Godzilla claim another life? Let's find out. So to start off, let's talk about their lowest end stuff you can possibly give both. That's them casually, super hyper easily being above planet level. As for Saitama, he faced an alien called Boros, who used a final attack that was stated capable of destroying the entire planet, and using his serious punch, Saitama easily punched right through it and splitting the beam in half. Because of Boros' statements being pretty accurate, we can just directly take his Planet Buster statement as being pretty reliable, especially since guides also confirmed that he would be capable of doing so. Saitama also very casually dealt with a monster called Evil Natural Ocean, who is literally the ocean, with the calculation of the easy serious punch, which he just mentioned was him blowing off steam, being at least moon level. He then also easily deals with Monster Garo, who could cut open Sage Centipede, who even at the lowest calculations is at least multi-continental. I'll tag my friend Christian Kemper to this video because he's gone over Garo in a nearly 3-hour long scaling thread where he's covered that this Garo would also at least be in that level himself, just off feats in the Saitama fight. Saitama then no-sells Garo, literally denting the earth in his face, at least a moon level feat. And when getting serious against Cosmic Garo, it's mentioned that their clash of punches would shatter the Earth. Shattering the Earth from the surface can reach all the way up to large planet level, and this is before Saitama increases his powers fighting Garo. On to Godzilla. Godzilla, in his battle with Mothra and Batra, is just stated to be in existence more threatening to the Earth than a meteor straight up stated able to shatter the planet. He's already placed above planet level. For more consistency, even in just his battle with Batra, Godzilla pretty easily splits open a tectonic plate, with the two then forcing open the plate even with just the energy of their beam attacks blasting each other. Based on the inverse square law of this energy, this calcs all the way up to large planet level as well. Considering that Godzilla then instantly defeats Batra, who he was battling on par with, the moment he gets deep into the mantle of the planet. Later on, when Batra becomes an adult, it's mentioned in a hypothetical guide that the adult Mothra forms can one-shot enemies who are on par with their larva forms. More likely than not, Batra would at least be above this large planet, which is consistent since a statement of his eye beams would be able to destroy the entire meteor in one shot. One blast from Batra can one-shot a planet-busting meteor. Godzilla proceeds to no-sell many of these attacks. In fact, it's stated he's outright invincible towards them. His fight with Rodan was also stated able to destroy Mother Earth, which again, would at least be large planet, but you're not here for baby stuff with these two, I guarantee. As for higher stuff, it's pretty easy to get both to and above star level. As Saitama progressed in his fight with Garo, he became so powerful that his mere sneeze alone not only eclipsed Garo's ability to grow stronger, but raised Jupiter's surface so quickly that the kinetic energy results from at least Dwarf Star Plus all the way up to Star Plus levels of energy. This is very interesting because obviously a sneeze is inferior to a punch. So assuming a basic punch versus sneeze difference, Saitama would at least be star level, if not just large star level. This is currently the strongest we've seen Saitama to this point in time, and kinda makes a lot of sense. If he was performing large planet to dwarf star feats, then gets exponentially stronger, and being at least large star kinda makes sense. As for Godzilla, take that earlier statement of his level of power, and then in the next film, against Mechagodzilla 2, he takes his own atomic breath back at him over 10,000 times more powerful. This bumps his at least dwarf to small star levels of power, at least into the large star to solar system levels of territory. But how does this apply back to his level of strength? We know that Mechagodzilla's other weapons can also inflict damage upon Godzilla, and yet the robot can take the recoil before it starts to overheat. This is interesting because Godzilla reverses the energy within his body, short-circuiting the mech and easily defeating it, after he himself grew stronger than it. So by this point, Godzilla is at least solar system level. For more consistency, at around this level of time, he faced off with multiple monsters who have star-busting statements, like Orochi the 8-headed dragon. He would also likely scale to people like Orochi way earlier, considering it's mentioned that he took the place as the strongest monster in the universe, stealing the title from King Ghidorah, who previously had it. Then of course there is the very famous feat of a Godzilla cell going through a black hole, with the Godzillaverse black holes being quite large, of over hundreds of times the masses of red giant stars, then consuming multiple exploding supernovae to power itself and becoming Space Godzilla, who Base Godzilla can then fight. He's inferior, but he can take hits and land some of his own. It seems pretty consistent for an at least solar system level of power. As for more consistency, since King Ghidorah uses energy called quark gluon plasma, which generates heat of 4 trillion degrees Celsius, the radiated energy from his own gravity beams would be all the way up into the kilofoe. This is interesting because not only can Ghidorahs take their own gravity beams, as shown in the Showa era, Heisei Godzilla was able to burn Heisei Ghidorah with his blue spiral beam, and even normal breath through the wings. That implies that Godzilla was definitely solar system level by this point in time, and since he generated more heat than that, we could possibly argue that his atomic breath could act as being that hot, which would in turn get it into the megafoe. This is kind of consistent for this super high level of temperature, considering he burned King Ghidorah, who literally no-souled a nuclear explosion, with nuclear bombs being 100 million degrees of course. That bumped the radiation energy pretty high indeed. Now I know the comments that are coming. What about the Serious Punch squared? I have like 10 issues with that feat. First of all, nothing at all states that the stars were destroyed. Nothing at all even states that that is caused by their fists clashing. Blast literally sensed the energy and said the Earth was in danger, not the galaxy, for those people. Part of the energy strikes Io, Jupiter's moon, and there's barely any damage on there. Garo later literally looks back the same direction it shoots, and the stars are perfectly intact, including the sun. So unless the sun in One Punch Man has galaxy-level durability, I find multisolar Saitama and Garo to be incredibly inconsistent. The only thing you could use for this is this picture of a nebula during the reversal of causality when Saitama went back in time. Even then it's so different from the alleged whole of space that I don't think it supports the argument at all, and there's so many inconsistent drawings of space in this fight that I don't think you can use anything from here really. Also, if that was the case, how come Garo was surpassed by a sneeze that doesn't even destroy Jupiter? And yes, he was surpassed. Actually read the manga, do not argue with it. But let's say that they did square their output enough to blow up all those stars and just take it absolutely literally, but let's just give it to them anyway, just so, you know, the Saitama fans can shut the fuck up. Even though I know the argument is bad, let's just do it in good faith anyway. This is interesting because it's not hard to get Heisei to multisolar himself. We can actually put this back early into the Heisei timeline, because it's very much implied, for the most part, in the majority of guides and sources that Biollante is the one responsible for Space Godzilla's creation. If this is true, this means that the total energy Biollante's body could contain, even at the low end, would be multi-solar system level, since one cell can contain at least 7 exploding stars. This would mean that Biollante's body would be worth more energy than actually nuking all those stars would maintain. Interesting, because a hyper-weakened Godzilla, by radiation-consuming bacteria, actually blasted a hole right through her head. Even this feat calculates all the way up to multi-solar system level as well for how many cells he would have vaporized by doing this. And even if you wanted to wank Saitama's feat to multi-galaxy, which has absolutely zero evidence, then it's really not hard to justify multi-galaxy Heisei in turn. It's specifically stated that the black hole that Space Godzilla went into was absorbed by the cell. So he could completely absorb a large black hole in one cell, and all those cells can absorb energy and maintain that energy and get even stronger. That would bump the Biollante version of the feat pretty high into multi-galaxy, and the Space Godzilla feat even higher if you think it was just him. Since Biollante has the most evidence, you could argue that even pretty early in the Heisei series, he's at least multi-galaxy. He was able to literally put a hole through her head after all. Then he gets hundreds, thousands, and even larger increases of power over the course of the series, with both energy absorption, power growth, and adaptation. Speaking of, this impressive growth should thus outshine Saitama's growth, which is only triggered by high emotional stress. Saitama does get stronger by himself, but not to the same extent. And it's very specified that that last exponential burst was because of power. You can argue that even early Heisei definitely matches, if not eclipses, Saitama completely, and growth would be in his favor. The only thing you could do at this point is argue God is higher dimensional, argue Saitama will eventually defeat God, thus Saitama is at least fourth dimensional. The problem is not only is there higher dimensional stuff in the Showa and Heisei series already, but Godzilla actually already scales to the cosmology. In fact, things much weaker than Godzilla scale to the cosmology. So chances are that even with this complete bullshit, Saitama still wouldn't really stand a chance. The only thing you could do after this point is argue that Genos' Babel, which is canonically Babel, is valid, and even then, because of how supergravity works, you could argue that Heisei just upscales it anyway. So if you want to be stupid, you could just favor Heisei regardless. But what about speed? Maybe the difference in power can be overcome by the gap in speed. Near the speed of light is considered a bad joke to Saitama, and faster than light characters are stated to be only kind of fast, with calculations for their feats getting from 4 to dozens of times the speed of light, and Saitama only considers them to be kinda quick. Of course, his most flashy showings are against Cosmic Garo. During the result of their punch clash, they were sent to Jupiter's moon Io incredibly quickly, so quick that even they couldn't really perceive it. This is interesting because such a feat, with the dialogue as our time, would give us hundreds of times the speed of light at least. Noteworthy because while this did blitz Cosmic Garo and sort of serious Saitama, when Saitama gets very serious and hits him at full power, yes, he did use full power, he stated it himself. I don't want to hear any cope. He also completely blitzed Garo, meaning Saitama was already at this level of speed, if not higher. Then the two begin their exponential growth rate. Since the graph states that Saitama's abilities got hundreds of times greater, that would probably include his speed. So Saitama would be bare minimum thousands of times the speed of light. There are higher ends based on earlier wank for lower level characters like the S-Class, but it seems pretty inconsistent for those guys to be hundreds of times the speed of light. But if you do, then higher ends for a beating Saitama performs on Garo can get all the way up into the thousands to billions of times speed of light range. This was performed by 100% Saitama as he started to get stronger, but before that final burst. So we could say that Saitama can be millions to billions of times the speed of light. This is currently the fastest we have, since Saitama hasn't had another full power battle for quite a while. How can Godzilla compete with speed like this? To get that, we turn to Space Godzilla. Space Godzilla flew from the edge of the universe, where his black hole feat occurred, to Earth in mere days. Indeed, so a universe-crossing feat like this calculates well into the trillions of times speed of light range. On top of this, Space Godzilla's crystals can completely blitz his flight speed, which is in turn noteworthy because Godzilla can actually react to these projectiles with his atomic breath, and even in melee combat. Meaning, Godzilla actually has a pretty good chance of tagging Saitama. I then hear the downplay of, well, everything's slower in the atmosphere. The problem is, Space Godzilla can completely control gravity, so anything affecting him wouldn't really work like that anymore. On top of this, he uses direct higher dimensional forces. So if you think that the Earth's gravity is going to impact his level of power and projectiles, that just doesn't add up. That's not to say Godzilla's travel speed isn't the same level of Saitama's, it's not, but he would be able to track, perceive, react to, and attack Saitama. Worst comes to worst, he can use his nuclear pulse if Saitama does decide to ping-pong blitz around like he did to Garo. Now let's talk about another thing, Saitama's radiation resistance. While Saitama has good radiation resistance, he's never implied or stated to be invincible to it. He only tanks Cosmic Garos, while Cosmic Garo can use nuclear fission and a gamma ray burst. The issue here is that Godzilla definitely upscales such things, and on top of that, radiation output in Greys is based on joules, so he would have to then account for Godzilla's much higher level of power. So Saitama is not immune to Godzilla's radiation attacks, because not only is he as strong, he's in fact stronger. Both will also grow stronger over the course of the battle, and adapt as well. As such, the world's strongest hero becomes a nobody in front of the king of the monsters. Anyway, that's all for this one. See you next time, and let's see if we can give Heisei a real challenge. I guarantee I'm gonna get some comments about that empty Void shit. Unfortunately, for One Punch Man cocksuckers, Void doesn't do anything really noteworthy. Oh my god, guys, he's multiversal because he's babbling about possibilities of branching worlds. You know, there's bubble worlds, and he says he can fold dimensions in a bad translation. Alright then. Explain how the attack that ignores space, energy, distance, and time got evaded by a character whose finite speed, and in fact, slower than at wank MFTL plus speed. Not to mention, we know that Void only has these abilities through God. It's questionable if this even scales to AP, because I mean, all it did was just cut Flashy's shoulder a little bit. Damn, that's crazy. You bypass all of space-time to, like, make a small crater in the planet. That's insane. Can you tell I'm not impressed? The most you can really get from it is the implication that there is a multiverse, and if you wank to say that God is superior to that multiverse, then he could possibly be multiversal plus. Saitama's eventually going to defeat him, even though currently he doesn't scale at all to God, to the point God could kill him by speaking if he so chose. I mean, if that's the game we're going to play, then Heisei Godzilla is confirmed to be the strongest Godzilla still, so automatically superior to Godzilla Ultima, who literally views an infinite upon infinite ad infinitum multiverse as fiction. There's literally nothing more you can say. Heisei wins. The strongest hero of this world fails against the king of the monsters.
Godzilla. Now the world